Hey there, and welcome to another episode of the Weapon Refine Ideas. This is just a small series where every time they reveal a new update, I have a look at the usually four characters that have been chosen to get special weapon refines in the next update. This month we've got female Corrin, Sheena, fallen Celica, and Berkut. Now, these are all once again very good choices. They seem to be sticking to the 2, 3, and 4 stars, one 5-star exclusive, and one heroic Grail unit, which is like a GHB or Tempest Trial unit. And I would say all four of these could certainly use something to give them a little bit of a boost. Berkut has not been very good for a long time now because other characters have been released that do what he does better, like Conrad. Conrad is a very good mixed bulk Lance Cavalry unit. And if you're looking for a player phase Gale Force unit, well, Perry does a very good job, especially with her weapon refine. So it's nice to see him get something. Fallen Celica's weapon has always been a bit shaky, so it's nice to see that get a bit of a boost. It'll be interesting to see what they do with that. And as far as Corrin and Sheena are concerned, Sheena has always been very reliable as a unit, especially for scoring in arena. But with that ceiling of scoring going past 170 now most of the time, it's becoming increasingly difficult to make use of Sheena, purely because you're needing higher scoring characters if you want to stay in the highest tiers. And then for Corrin, a lot of the dragons that don't have their own weapon have absolutely fallen off over the years, and this is because they don't have much unique to them. Um, Without a pref weapon, they don't stand out very well because they all kind of do the same thing. You know, they have speed or no speed, and usually mixed bulk, and they all share the same weaknesses. So most of the time, so it would be nice to see Corrin get something quite nice. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into this and see what the units are currently used for, and perhaps discuss what I'd like to see as their weapon refine. Okay, here we have female Corrin. Now, female Corrin is a character a lot of people have actually used since the game came out, and that's because as a dragon with a fair amount of speed and good mixed bulk, especially with Res plus IVs, she makes for an excellent unit, really. Quite like Donnell, easy to build, you can't really go wrong. Most of the time I see Steady Breath, Wrath, or Quick Riposte with Lightning Breath. And I decided that since the title of her refined weapon does seem to allude to a dark breath type thing, I thought, well, I believe it's called Gloom Breath. I thought, well, maybe I could make something that involves dark breath so that when the refine comes out, it might work with it. So I've got here a multi-smoke build that relies on wind sweep. She probably overkills speed just a tad, but I wanted to make sure that wind sweep was consistent enough. You can always swap out Swift Sparrow to Seal for Mirror Strike when that comes out, but I just felt that this worked quite well. As far as what she comes with, Dark Breath is a rather handy breath if you're running Wind Sweep. Other than that, it's not particularly useful. I mean, most of the time you'll just run Lightning Breath with a Breath Seal, a Breath A skill to help you speed up your special charge. But Dark Breath is mostly for the sweep debuffs type thing. You're like a melee dagger, so to speak. She's got plenty of speed and bulk to make it work. Her only biggest issue, of course, is that low attack stat. She also comes with Draconic Aura, which is actually quite a nice special. It's a little bit slept on. I think not as many people use it as they perhaps could. If you've got a character with a lot of attack, it really does do some damage, especially Dragon Fang, but it's a rather decent special. It's got a nice charge. I put Draconic Aura on characters with cooldown -1 weapons, personally. Dragon Fang can be good for characters that combo with Brave Lucina to get that special charge. Seal Res was never really that good. I mean, the idea is that after combat you debuff their res so that someone else can go in and finish them off. But the thing is, Seal Res debuffs this res by, I believe, 5 or 7, one of those two. Either way, you're gaining around 5 or 7 damage. But Poison Strike is also after combat, and that does 10 damage flat. So not only do you gain more from it, but the 10 damage happens straight away. You don't have to go and attack with someone else. They take that 10 damage, and they've already been chipped down a little bit. So the seal skills in general have never been that useful, especially when most of the time nowadays you're trying to end combat in one go with one unit. It's quite rare that you'd leave characters alive unless you're running some kind of Vantage build. In which case seal skills would be nice if smoke skills didn't exist. And ploys. Ploys debuff characters before combat. So rather than hitting them, not killing them, and then after combat they get debuffed, ploys can debuff a character before you fight, so that even the person that attacks first gains the benefit of the debuff. So yeah, that's why seal skills aren't particularly amazing, and why no one uses them. Hone Attack 3 is still actually not bad. She does have it at 4-star, as you can see. Sure, Hone Attack 4 exists, but it's locked to a 5-star unit or 2, so you're relying on random chance to get that. A 4-star available cheap buffing skill is always nice. But the thing is, if you're running an all-cavalry, armor, or flying team, you'd run Hone Cavalry, and so on. And if you're running a mixed team, you'd run Tactics, because Tactics are really good. The only time this would be useful is in an all-infantry team, in which case you'd probably want to run Infantry Pulse instead, since she has a fair amount of HP, and can be very beneficial to your infantry teams. But as a cheap option, Hone Attack 3 isn't too bad. But yeah, that's all there really is to say about Corrin. I hope her Refine gives her something that really helps her stick out a bit more. Maybe if she had a breath that debuffs all stats by 7, then you could get rid of the res smoke that I have on the build there. Or perhaps give her something that works after combat as well, like something that synergizes with that. So she'd debuff all their stats by 7 each, and maybe give her some kind of skill that boosts her damage based on the debuffs that the enemy has. Something like Matthew and Ursula's Refine. I think that would be quite nice. But yeah, that's all I really have to say about Corrin. Here we have Sheena. Now, much like Gwendolyn and Draug, she is one of the only 3 and 4-star armor units in the game. This makes her quite useful for scoring in arena most of the time, and even though that ceiling is increasing, she's still a rather solid unit. Out of the, I believe, 4 3 and 4-star Gen 1 armor units we have, Sheena's actually one of the better ones in my opinion. She's got a really good mixed bulk. She has a very salvageable speed stat, surprisingly so, at max investment at least. And her colour's quite good too. Green axe armors are common, but again, being the only 3 and 4-star available one gives her quite the edge. So yeah, she comes with Killer Axe, which of course can be upgraded to Slaying Axe. Escudation is not used very much, but it's still handy on occasion if you're looking for a cheap defensive special on a one-off arena assault unit. Svarlin's Shield is a fantastic skill if it was a Sacred Seal. As an A-slot skill, you are sacrificing quite a lot just to get rid of one of your weaknesses. You don't really gain any strengths. If you had something like grants Def Res +4 if foe initiates combat as well, it would be quite handy, but on its own, it's not the best. It would be much better as a Sacred Seal, in my opinion. Fortify Armor is still used quite often. Armor March and other skills tend to overtake, but Fortify and Hone Armor are still very solid since they grant easy buffs very quickly. It's good for cheap sets as well. So if you're looking for a cheap armor team or a cheap arena assault unit, once again, you know, it's there. All of her skills, besides of course the upgraded weapon, are available at 4-star and below. So it's not too bad really. It's not the worst fodder in the world. At max merge I ran a speed build. Much like Gwendolyn, it's not the best speed, but it's salvageable, and Sheena especially is very salvageable with the bond skill. She can run a mixed phase special fighter ether set, as you can see here. Slaying Axe makes it a 4 cooldown special, so she either gets hit back, procs ether, or the other way around. Now, the attack speed bond is very easy to set up on enemy phase because you just stand next to an ally, end turn, and then they attack you. But if you're going for player phase, it might be a bit trickier because you have to move up an ally first and then move Sheena next to them to attack. So you could swap that out for Swift Sparrow, or instead, if you have a guidance unit on rather a mixed team, not an armor team, you can run guidance, and like what I plan to do with my Fallen Robin, guidance in with special fighter and bond skills, and be just as effective at player phase as enemy phase. Guidance is really good for bond skill sets, and I use bond skills a lot because they're very powerful. If you feel like you don't have enough speed, even though this is already hitting with a buff 47, which is roughly about what you'd want, it's the minimal speed, you can always swap the A skill out for attack speed bond 3 or attack speed bond 4 if you have it. That would work. The more speed the better, though keep in mind that you'd be getting rid of distant counter, which is very useful for your enemy phase. So yeah, that's quite solid. I mean, for a refine, I'd like to see Slaying Axe because it just works so well with so many things. There aren't many things better than cooldown -1 on your weapon. I mean, you can get a flat stat like attack, speed, death, or res, but the cooldown -1 effect is just so strong, especially if she has synergy with Brave Casino, which she does. But as an army unit, you probably won't use that. You'd use Special Fighter. Having speed as an armor is still rare, so it's a bonus. She's a solid unit, and I hope that her refine gives her Slaying Axe as a base, and maybe as a refine give her a Spectrum Bond. That'd be quite nice. Or even a conditional distant counter would be really good. They tend to try and synergize with what they have as their base kit. This isn't always the case, but she seems to be part of an armor team here, so they may give her a Bond Spectrum. So if she's stood next to another armor unit or any ally, she gains 4 to all stats. That'd be quite useful, much similar to the Falchions. I think that'd just be really good. But yeah, that's all there is to say about Sheena. Hopefully she gets something good, because I know a lot of people have built her for scoring. So a lot of people are looking out for this refine. Here's our 5-star exclusive for this batch, Fallen Celica. Now, Fallen Celica has a pretty good stat line, actually. Despite the fact that she's a sword infantry unit and has some of the largest competition in the game, Fallen Celica has good mixed bulk, good speed, an alright attack stat, but what lets her down is her weapon. I mean, Beloved Sophia was never terrible, but the problem is that it's very inconsistent. And much like Ragnarok was, which was base Celica's weapon, it would be quite nice to see them adjust the special effects of Beloved Sophia, much like they did with Ragnarok, to be a little bit more consistent. They could very easily make it a lot stronger. What I do is change the base effect to be, if unit's HP is above 25%, gains attack speed def res plus 4 or 5 during combat, and if unit attacks, takes 5 damage after combat. This would be similar to push skills, which would be a unique weapon for her. And then the refine effect could be something else. It could be Mystic Boost, which would mitigate her drawback within the weapon, leaving your A and B slots open for many different combinations. It'd be a very good combination, or if that was a bit too powerful to have all in one weapon, she could have Wrath or cooldown -1 as a refine. There's no reason they can't. Because I was really tempted to make a Slaying Edge build, but I went with the pref weapon instead, just to show you the kind of measures you have to take to make the weapon work. But of course, her weapon isn't the only thing she comes with. She has Luna, Chill Speed, and Hone Attack. I've already talked about Hone Attack, but as far as the other two are concerned, Luna is still used by a lot of characters to this day. It's a very powerful special. given that a lot of the characters that are strong in defense, one of their biggest weaknesses, of course, is taking that away from them, especially if they're slow, because once you take the bulk away from a slow unit, they become very, very easy to take down. Luna also synergizes with cooldown -1 weapons. Of course, Beloved Sophia isn't that, but you can run a Slaying Edge on Celica here, this Fallen Celica, and pair her up with Brave Lucina. So with that done, there's Chill Speed. Chill Speed is good, but better as a Sacred Seal. I wouldn't fodder Fallen Celica for this skill, because I wouldn't fodder her at all, to be honest. She doesn't really have anything as far as 5-star fuel is. I mean, her own attack, as you saw, was available on Corrin, and Luna's available on Frederick, I think, and Katria. And then Chill Speed you can get as a Sacred Seal, so while the skills aren't terrible, it's nothing I'd fodder her for. Chill Speed debuffs the opponent with the highest speed by 7, which is actually quite good and is increasingly useful as the speed ceiling increases on those one-off units. But again, it's much better as a Sacred Seal, because depending on your arena team, you can just swap it around between characters and bonus units and whatnot whenever you like, whereas it's not really a skill you'd run all the time if you were to inherit it, so it's probably nicer just to keep Fallen Celica as a fun unit. She does have a lot of competition, I'll get onto that in a minute. But yeah, the build I went with was Mixed Bulk. She can run Joint Drive Speed very well. You could also run Joint Drive Attack if your damage is lacking. The biggest problem though is because she doesn't have cooldown -1, it's very hard to come up with some kind of combination for her special, since Heavy and Flashing Blade aren't very consistent with her stat line if you're using her weapon. They can be, but it's a bit shaky. But yeah, the idea is to have Mixed Bulk, which is really useful for distant counter. Ruptured Sky can either be a get hit, hit back proc situation, or if you're using Brave Lucina, it just instantly procs. It's slightly better than Moonbow. If you have Moonbow works fine. You don't need to go foddering your free male Byleth for her, because once the Refine comes out for her weapon, she may need a completely different set than this one. But based on what she has, Mystic Boost helps with Beloved Sophia. You have to be at 100% HP for the effect to happen, so Mystic Boost is quite handy to keep your HP up. You can also run Noontime or Soul, but I just felt like she needed a little bit more damage from the special. So yeah, that's the build. But yeah, like I said earlier, competition, there's so many sword infantries out there that are really good. Because the thing is, if you're looking for strong burst damage, you could just invest in a Fur, who's a 3 and 4-star unit. If you're looking for something that's very good, then go for Ira. She's on weekly revival rotations, which should go on at least another year. She's only 1,100 orbs by comparison to Celica, who's 2,000 orbs on average to +10. Last Say, of course, is a better Ira, but double the cost, so it depends how far you want to go, but Celica is high cost for what is essentially just not the best unit ever, but then again, when her Refine comes out, that might change. So yeah, that's all there really is to say about Fallen Celica. I'd love to see her get a Refine that changes the effect to be more consistent, and then anything like cooldown -1 on top would be pretty good. Okay, last and, well, probably least, it's Berkut. Now, he's not a terrible unit, but as far as competition goes, he's got quite a lot. In the 3 and 4-star pool alone, he has Perry, who is a really reliable Gale Force unit, especially with her refined weapon. And then if you're looking at slow mixed bulk tanks, you have Conrad for that. And eventually Conrad will get his bonus copy from a summer event or something, and you'll have 5, which isn't as cheap as Berkut, but is close to Berkut's price in Grails. And the reason why I say this is because Conrad has higher BST, and as a result just has the edge with bulk. I think his stat spread actually has the potential to run speed a little bit as well, while also being mixed bulk in a similar sense to Berkut. So it's all the more reason for Berkut to get a refine this month, eh? Now, as far as what he comes with Berkut's Lance, which is an inheritable weapon. It grants, I believe, 7 res, 2 unit if the foe initiates combat. So it's like a warding stance 3.5, I think it is, with no guard effect. So it just grants res if you're attacked. Water boost is practically useless, but it is well, it's available at 5 stars, so it's not what he'd primarily be foddered off for. Blazing Flame is okay, but Blazing Wind is usually better. And Ward Cavalry is the best thing he's got. It's besides his weapon, which is actually not too bad. Ward Cavalry is a very good skill, but unlike flyers and armors who have their own ward skills, cavalry units prefer player phase generally. So Ward Cavalry is very rarely useful, as most cavalry units specialize in using their movement to the best of its ability. I mean, army units don't move very far, they can only go one space at a time. This is why most of them favour enemy phase builds and ward skills. Cavalry units have less stats, but they can move 3 squares at a time. But if you're specialising in being a tank, an enemy phase character, then you're wasting the benefits of having 3 movement squares, but you're also suffering the consequences of having less stats, because you're a cavalry unit. You have less stats to your name. This is why Berkut's never been that particularly great, because as a cavalry unit, not only does he have less stats, but he also has less skills, and he suffers the weaknesses cavalry units have. Cav slaying weapons, the fact that most cavalry units just don't have access to skills. They can't use wrath, I don't think they can use impact skills. They have lull skills, but infantry can use those as well. I mean, infantry can use practically everything. So they don't have very much. Now, enough ranting about why cavalry units aren't very good. As far as Berkut himself is concerned, he can run a very good mixed bulk set. I've also seen a lot of people run Brave Lance with Desperation and Brash Assault. This is also very good, because once you're low on health, you can hit 4 times in a row if you initiate, which is quite good. The only problem with this is, as a slow unit whose base resistance is quite low, without all the bells and whistles that come with the skills, it becomes very difficult to get safely into that range, especially since Brash Assault you have to be under half HP to even use, and at that stage you're vulnerable because you're low on health. So it's very tricky to use that build effectively without proper setup. Whereas this enemy phase build, while it has no player phase whatsoever most of the time, it's a very good enemy phase mixed tank build. Joint drive attack and the bond skill give him some attack points that he needs. His def and res are actually equal, all things considered, and the lull skill decreases the opponent's defense and attack, giving you a bit more bulk and a bit more damage. Rupture Sky is optional. You can also run Bonfire or Iceberg, or even Glacis or Ignis if you're using Brave Lucina. If you want to hit twice on enemy phase, you're going to need Quick Riposte instead. You can swap out the Bond skill or the B skill for that. That's up to you. There's a lot you can do, but at the same time there really isn't. You just don't have that many skills at your disposal. So for his refine, I'd like to see him get one of those weapons that a lot of the older units have got, where he gets just lots of stats. If he gets lots of stats, he can run speed, and if he can run speed, then his enemy phase build will increase quite a lot. You'd be running lull attack speed instead, and then joint drive speed, and suddenly he'd be very, very strong. Well, he wouldn't be really strong, but he'd be better than he was now, which is a unit that most people have benched, as he's really not very useful for the time being. But yeah, hopefully get something cool. Well, that brings us to the end of this Refine Ideas video. I hope you all found it helpful in some way. I know some of you who use these characters have been waiting quite a long time for them to get their chance. So I hope that the refines that they do get are something that you would all find useful and fun. It's always a shame to see characters get bad refines, but most of the time, they get something that will at least give them a gimmick or something unique to them, and that's what's always been quite nice about weapon refines. So yeah, hopefully these characters will get something cool that they can use. But yeah, I wish you all the best of luck on your summons if you do summon soon. And yeah, with all that all being said, thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye.